Now, I did mention at the start I'd promised to tell you how to bribe an official. Now, I have to just emphasise that technically I'm not condoning bribery. I've never paid a bribe. I never will. A bribe is to persuade someone to act in one's favour illegally or dishonestly by gift or inducement. I have, however, been extorted on a number of times, and this is it's endemic to East Africa. If you look at the Transparency International Index, there are a number of places in the world, and East Africa is not top of the pops, but it's right up there in the charts. So essentially, in any number of areas, if you are driving, you will forever come across vehicle checkpoints, or vehicle cash points, as I think I prefer to call them. There is a right way and a wrong way to go about paying this. You can do the very angry person approach and say this is wrong. You can simply pretend it's not going to happen. But the first time I was pulled up, I was at a checkpoint on the first bit of bitumen I'd seen for days, and I thought, fantastic. Cruising along, and we come to essentially just a couple of trees beside the road. Policeman walks out, flags me down, says, "Hello, how are you, sir?" So, "Very good, thank you." Said, "Do you have a driver's license?" So, "Yes." Pull that out. Says, "Good. Do you have a fire extinguisher?" "Yes, I have the mandatory fire extinguisher." "Do you have the safety triangle?" "Yes, I have the mandatory safety triangle." "Do you have the first aid kit?" "Yes, I have the first aid kit." "Do you have the registration papers?" "Yes, I have the registration papers." Do your lights work?" "Yes." We'll test it, and this goes on and on. I'm a little bit, I can see where this is going fairly quickly, but I just keep playing the game. Go, "Yep, I have." In the end, they go to the back of the Land Cruiser pickup that I'm driving and say, "Your reflectors are faded." The reflectors are just a silver sticker on the back, a little red and white striped sticker, and it's required by law on the back of all commercial vehicles. And I said, "No, they're not faded. They're fine. They're there." "So no, sir, I'm sorry, they are faded. We will have to fine you." And sure enough, it's a 40,000 shilling fine. And I said, "Well, I'll need a receipt." He said, "Oh, well, very good, grumble, grumble." And very quickly, it's 20,000 shillings without a receipt. And this is the story. So on that trip, inevitably, I've been on road trips where I've been pulled up 6 times a day, literally almost every hour, and in some areas every 20 minutes. And you very quickly learn that what works is just to be friendly and to be sociable and to just simply have a chat. And in the end, I've actually got it down to literally, look, we'll travel around with a few beers or soft drinks, and it's about a third of the country's Muslim, so depending on the preference, whether it's beer or soft drink, and just hand a police officer, have a chat and a smile and say, "Here's a beer and a bag of cashews for lunch," or a bag of chips, or whatever it might be. And other times I remember being pulled out once and even chatting to a couple of guys who were so nice that they almost forgot to ask me for money, and I would simply say in the end, "Look, here's $5 equivalent, 10,000 shillings. Said, I know you guys don't get paid much, so here's just something to make your day. And by the way, the only catch is you have to spend it on beer." I go, "Okay, all right," big laugh. And very quickly, that's just, I think, the reality of a country where people are paid $30 a month and given a badge, and basically have to make their own way through life. So also you very quickly learn that a meal just before breakfast, just before lunch, or particularly just before dinner, the roads are going to be thick with vehicle cash points, and that's the time when you'll be asked for money. One of the things I will show you here is dealing with immigration. This is an example of a receipt for immigration. Now I'm going to show you the back of the receipt. And the astute among you will very quickly realise what's going on here. If you think about the back of that receipt, that's where the carbon paper was facing. So I have no idea what's actually on the receipt book when the auditors come through or the division boss comes through, but I'm pretty sure it's not $50 or $60 or $200, as the case may be. In fact, I'll give you an example of another great story, just ingenuity. This is was the local hotel, about a day's drive away. It was the best standard hotel. You'll notice it's not finished on the roof, and that's simply because if you don't finish it, then you don't have to pay land tax on it. Despite looking quite decent there, and it is the most decent hotel in the area, it's still pretty basic standard, but it works, it's fine, and you can have an ensuite of a sort. And I'm standing out there one morning, and by the way, this place is called the New Super City Hotel. which is my favourite name for a hotel ever, because it's not new, it's not super, it's not a city, and it's only just barely a hotel. But I'm standing out there on the front steps with a couple of other people. There were some other Mzungus there travelling through at the time. So there's about 4 or 5 Mzungus and half a dozen Africans, and we're just chatting. And the immigration officials, or at least a chap in a tie and a business shirt, turns up and looks around and quick look at the register and says, "I'm looking for Julian Talbot." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know why me?" But I said, "Oh, that's me." So I need to see your visa, please. And anyway, to cut a long story short, he's asked to see my visa, which has just arrived. I've just been given a residency for Tanzania. And you'll notice there, about halfway down where it says place of residence, or a third of the way down, place of residence, place of work, it says DSM for Dar es Salaam. Now, I've been given this, and we've actually asked for a few areas. He said, "Hi, I'm sorry, my friend, you must come with us. You are not authorised to work here." I said, "Why? This is my residence." "Oh, this residence does not cover Rukwa district or Kigoma district." Long story short, we go to the immigration office, and about 2 hours of being threatened with jail and fines and deportation. And by this point, of course, I'm just sort of like been in Africa long enough to go, "Yeah, okay, sure, fine. I get paid whether I'm in jail or whether I'm at work. It's okay." And very quickly the situation becomes probably more relaxed. So the less angst I project, the less angst they project. And very quickly we come to an understanding whereby they issue me a special pass, which is $400, and suddenly my visa, as you'll notice there, is actually Dar es Salaam, Rukwa and Kigoma district. What's really ingenious, when we went back to the paperwork and we checked, we had originally applied for all those 3 in Dar es Salaam, and what simply obviously happened is that the chaps in Dar es Salaam issued it only with 1. We didn't notice. They shipped it out. They rang their mates in Mpanda and said, "When this chap comes into town, he will probably need a special pass, and by the way, you should help us with that." And that's just one of the things you just don't see coming. It's ingenious. Now, I did also mention I'd tell you how to get arrested for running a first aid clinic and or helping out at a school. In short, come out and volunteer your time, and we'll have a look through it. This is our first aid clinic at the camp. We'd run it 3 days a week for the local community. To get to anything approximating a first aid clinic was a day's walk, literally 29 kilometres, and there was 2 in opposite directions. So we were about in the middle of them, at about 60 k's between the 2 of them. So a day's walk for anybody else. And when you did get here, they didn't have any medications. Quite often we would take people down there who we thought were too complicated for us to treat legally as a first aid post. But when we took them down, we would always take the drips and the medications and what have you. And that's our clinic there. We had a never-ending stream of respiratory tract infections, malaria, you name it, people had it. Shingles, jigger worms, skin conditions. One of the trips we did down was when there was a typhoid outbreak at the local village, and this was the hallway of the local medical centre, and this woman had been there for about 4 days with typhoid, and she was only one of a dozen people there, and the chaps simply didn't have any drips, any antibiotics, anything to give people, so we'd take them down there and hand them out, and they're the kind of things you can make a big difference with in the community. One of the things we also did at the local school, this was the classroom, one of 3 classrooms, and you'll notice in the back a pile of furniture. In fact, that's the pile of furniture in the back. It used to be furniture. It's broken timber. It's old desks, literally just fallen apart, and nobody with the skills to put them together, or even the nails, for example, which cost a fair bit of extra money. We ended up getting a work crew together. A team of us from the camp just came out and spent a couple of days. We rebuilt the furniture, moved the bricks. You'll notice that the gap between the doorway there and the ground in this 3rd classroom, inside it was even more pronounced, and it was such that there was over the 40 feet length of the room, from the whiteboard or the blackboard at the front to the back of the room was a 3-foot drop, and really it was just unusable as a classroom. So we got together with, we organised the village. In fact, my partner Lynn organised a meeting, and not only did we get the village motivated to come in and help us lay the floor, we paid a couple of our guys and put the concrete and the nails and the equipment into it to put a concrete floor in there. But we managed to find for a whole range of reasons, the 3 teachers at the school weren't teaching. They were up in Kigoma trying to get paid because they apparently weren't getting their salaries. So we found 2 people with TAFE or technical college diplomas in teaching and in social sciences, and we found 2 other people with high school degrees who said, yep, we'd like to be teachers. And so what we do now is we pay, roughly it costs us about $2,500 a year to pay the salaries of 4 teachers there, and which now means that 450 kids can go to school. So, I mean, they're a pretty ragtag batch. You're really talking in a remote area, but they're a great bunch of kids, and they're just dead chuffed to have anybody show any interest in them and to come and play. Simple things like whenever we'd go on break, we'd come back, we'd spend $100 on school books and texts. Now, one of the other things that Lynn would do there, and was apart from volunteering at the school and running a first aid clinic, we also had work to do, obviously doing survey work and exploration. And one of the activities was a helicopter survey. And this, for a bunch of reasons, didn't work out. But interestingly enough, we had to have a government observer along who was not very supportive, how can I put it, of some of the initiatives. Very supportive with lip service, saying you're doing great things for the community, it's fantastic. To which we would say, come on out and, would you like to talk at the school, give a lecture, you donate a bit of your time with us on one of the work parties. To which this particular chap declined to, in fact, offer any assistance. Local Tanzanian chap, and for reasons of his own, decided he really didn't want to. What was particularly probably interesting for us was that after 2 months of being there and various challenges with that whole survey, which are probably too boring to go into, but if you've ever dealt with government bureaucracy in a developing country, you've got a fair idea of just how challenging it can be. I came across a comment on a LinkedIn site recently. A chap said that the biggest challenge in the resources sector at the moment is the Australian government, to which I politely but tongue-in-cheek said, I think you need to get out more and deal with some other governments around the world. That makes the Aussie government look like a walk in the park. But in any case, about literally 4 days after the helicopter crew left and the observer had left, we get a call from immigration who've driven out this incredibly difficult track in a RAV4, which they've hired for the day. And I swear the poor driver's going, I'm never bringing it out here again. He's just about had it stuck in the creek. He's dinged it. And they've come out looking for myself and a couple other guys who work there, and they've specifically said, and I believe you have someone else here. I said, yes, my partner Lynn. He said, where is she? I said, she's helping at the school. So does she have a visa for that? No, she's just volunteering. But what's she doing? She's helping at the school. Okay, so she needs a work visa for that. No, she's not working. She's not getting paid. That's different. She needs a volunteer's visa. That is a $600 visa. Long story short, after much discussion and about 4 or 5 hours wasted and trips to the school, and during which time we've actually had to do a first aid treatment for a guy who's been in a fight and had his ribs broken and a broken hip, and had to transfer him to the local hospital, which again a day's drive. So we're going through this, and immigration is watching this, and after much wear, and we're saying, look, she doesn't need a visa, she's not getting paid, she's not a volunteer. We managed to get the visa down from, and literally we're talking about not even veiled, outright threats of arrest and deportation. It's basically, if you don't sort the visa out, she's going to jail today. So in the end we negotiated it down to $200. And the poor village chairman is just about beside himself, because he's talking to the immigration officials and saying, and by now I've got enough Swahili to get a pretty darn good idea of what he's saying. In fact, I'm just following this conversation discreetly from the side. And he's basically saying, how can you charge these people to come out? We have so few people come through. It's hard enough to get anyone to come here, let alone to volunteer. And you want to make them pay for it? And he's just beside himself trying to influence them, but of course to no avail. Perhaps he did help in negotiating it down from $600 to $200. But again, you get the receipt, and you have to go into Mpanda to get the passport across, and you do the receipt. All in all, a couple of $1,000 of wasted time by the time you put everyone together. But that's just the way we do business, and that's part of one of the challenges.